always tell people, if you have the chance to shake somebody's hand backstage, do it. I always love to say this about Anton Zedd, is that he's one of the funniest guys to tour with.
This is Lauren Engel of Sidewalk Talk. Today I'm here with Danilo Lewis.
Hi guys.
So originally you were born in
Nicaragua.
Oh, Nicaragua.
Yeah, that's where I was born.
Yeah.
But then moved to Puerto Rico with my parents. And grew up there and also in Antigua in the Caribbean. And then migrated to DC.
Oh, at what age were you in DC?
I got to DC when I was 14-ish, around there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you already interested, like were you already a creative person, or parents creative?
My mom is an artist. She's a painter. So she very early on got me into art, painting, drawing. So I think that's where, I guess, my creative side got started. Also, she always had the cameras.
Oh,
she
wow.
loved taking photos. So I would always,
Like
from time
film?
to time. Yeah, film cameras.
Yeah.
And from time to time, I would just steal them without her knowing. And then one day she would realize, where's my camera? You just have to look in my room. The camera's over there.
I love that. And then what were you taking photos of when you were stealing them? Just like anything?
To be honest, anything. I think I started taking photos of plants and flowers. That migrated to
all
maybe
photographers start. It's like always a zoom in of a flower.
Yeah, it was super macro flowers. And then my dogs growing up. And and then that's sort of, that's how I started. I mean, I guess I was trying to remember if there was anything specific that I photographed at that beginning, but I guess a lot of landscaping.
Did you realize from the onset that you wanted to make photography your career?
No. So I want to say it was more of a late bloomer to photography once I realized that I could do this for a living. I always liked it. It was a hobby. Once I got, I guess, a little better, I stopped photographing plants and photograph other stuff, landscaping and portraits and things like that. But it was always just for fun. I had a day job for the longest time, and
this was before you went to University of...
No, this is after college.
Oh, after college.
Yeah,
Wait, what did you study at college?
Business.
Oh, okay.
And that sort of... But yeah, it was always just a hobby. I never really thought of it as a career. My mom was an artist. It's like, she was an artist for her career, but I never really thought that that's what I would do or be.
What did you think you were going to do with a business degree? I guess anything.
Well, I was doing finance after college. I worked for a financial firm, and photography started happening. Had a friend of mine who was a DJ who was starting out, and I was always that friend with the camera. Whenever we were out, parties or whatever it was we were out, I always had a camera on me. And he asked me to come shoot for him. Obviously, I was going to help him out as one of my best friends. I did. And that sort of sparked the interest where I was like, oh, people get paid to do this. Like, you can actually make money out of this. And little by little, it just sort of built from there.
Did you, looking back, do you think having a business degree helped you with your photography, maybe some like finance or marketing stuff like now?
I think it helped me. I think it helped me once I settled out of my job, where I knew the direction I needed to take. I knew the things I needed to do to sort of establish myself, like contract-wise, and how businesses handle, I guess, photography-wise, with contracts and invoicing and anything that's related to that. I think I had a little bit of a leg up in that department, but it's still trial and error with a lot of when you start talking to clients and trying to figure out what rates you're going to charge and where that's going to lead, and the conversations you need to have. They're not always the most pleasant of conversations at the beginning because you're not used to telling people or asking people for money. But obviously, as time goes on, you get more comfortable. But I think, I had a little bit of a leg up in that department.
While you were doing your finance jobs, you were working other jobs. Is that when you were working for shooting for nightclubs and stuff?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
while I had my day job, that's when I started doing nightclub stuff, nightlife. My friend who was a DJ, he was DJing at this club, and his promoter asked me to come in and take photos of his club, one of his clubs. And he was one of the guys who essentially got me my start, because I eventually, as his clubs kept getting bigger and bigger, he eventually opens up ECHOSTAGE, becomes #1 club in America. And because of them, I got essentially an opportunity to, one, shoot a festival every single night.
Yeah.
Massive production, massive artists coming in, and gave me that opportunity to really learn, you know, the aspect of how much is involved in not just, let's say, a nightclub, but artists who are coming in, touring artists, visuals, lighting, audio, like everything that surrounds, I guess, like a tour. And it was like prime education, I would say, for EDM scene.
Yeah, and how did you teach yourself all this?
Trial and error. A lot of practice, a lot of shooting every single day. Obviously, I got a little bit spoiled with the clubs that I was shooting at. Obviously, they had a lot of production, big production. They also, but it was like anything, if there was something I didn't understand, I was lucky enough that I had a lot of friends at the beginning who kind of helped me out. If there was something I wanted to try, or I thought their editing was better, or their technique of shooting something was better, I'm one of the lucky few that can say that I don't want to say mentors, but friends that along the way always helped me out to get to like where I wanted to be. That's as far as quality of the work was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And wait, so what year was this? How long ago?
So I started 10 years ago. This is my year 10. I went full time as a photographer 5 years ago. And I mean, this probably started about 6 or 7 years ago, where it became serious. Obviously, I was taking the jobs more serious. Obviously, my mind was away from my day job and more into this photography world, because I could tell that this is where I wanted to go.
Yeah. And back then, what was the style of EDM? The style of EDM photography? Because I think it actually has changed over the years. Like now, I just feel like the style is I can't describe, but you know what I mean. It's changed.
So
like back then, it was really contrasted color. Now it's like bluish, orange hues. You know what I mean?
So yeah, I want to say. I mean, when I started, obviously the biggest name was always Rooks, and I guess his style was always taken, or I guess molded
Very
a lot of
flash.
the younger. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess it set a precedent of what the work should look like, because he was obviously the top photographer, and a lot of people coming up in that moment where EDM was blowing up, EDM photography was blowing up. It was like, okay, like how can we emulate what's the best work out there? But as anything, it kind of evolves. People start bringing in their own styles. I would say at the beginning there was a lot of also like grainy, gritty photos.
Yeah.
Like it's because it was a lot of these nightlife guys who started to get jobs in touring, but you were getting that nightlife sort of look into a touring world, and you got those super grainy photos, super flash in your face kind of photos.
Yeah.
And then obviously festival starts to explode, and I guess that's where like a turn into the kind of festival photography gets taken into touring now. I mean, that's how, for the longest time before I started touring, I was doing the big festival circuits, from music festivals, EDM festivals. And
was it like through a media pass, or were you like contracted by them?
So when my first festival job was Electric Zoo, and I was hired by the festival through Made Event, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's what it was right now.
So they found you just from word of mouth, or?
The director for marketing and who was the lead photographer for Electric Zoo contacted me through another friend of mine who was part of the team at that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and kind of hired me just, I guess, word of mouth from friend to friend, I guess. Yeah, and that was my first one. That was 2013. And from then on, it was like that same team sort of morphed. Eventually, started doing more festivals.
Oh, so it was like a group of you guys?
Yeah, eventually it turned into a live coverage that I was a member of for a little bit. And we started doing that. You know, they started a live coverage, I think, I don't know, 3 years before I started. And then I joined them and did the whole festival circuit with them. Everything from music festivals to EDM festivals, even country music festivals. Yeah, which are a lot of fun, by the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think, to be honest, I think my photography, once I took it into the touring side of it, it came from how I shot festivals. You know, I looked into concerts and shooting them like I did a festival. And obviously that has changed now. Everything just keeps evolving, you know, trying to keep how things look fresh. So, yeah.
When you were doing all these festivals or like at ECHOSTAGE, were you networking with the artist team already, or did they not
Every
really
single
know?
time.
Oh,
I
yeah.
always tell people, if you have the chance to shake somebody's hand backstage, do it. Introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Someone there is connected with somebody, whether it's the artist manager, the artist agent, their friend, whoever. There's somebody there. Go up and say hello. That's the easiest way to really grow into this business. And a lot of people overlook it. And I can understand it's a little bit scary to go out and meet these artist managers who are big, have a lot of clients. The artists themselves who are hanging out back there, like, you know, they get starstruck, but you just have to do it.
Or also sending your photos to the team, or not, just introducing?
I would introduce myself first, and obviously since I was working with the team, we could always provide photos for them if they didn't have any artists, and obviously that helped. You know, you have that connection where it's like, hey, I'm already working for the festival. We're already going to be doing photos for you guys. If you need anything, obviously we'll provide the photos.
Yeah.
The festival will provide the photo regardless, so it's always better if you just went out and did it yourself.
So which was the first artist you worked with?
My very first artist was a house music DJ. His name was Wally Lopez, or his name is Wally Lopez. He's the first guy to message me on Instagram and ask me if I wanted to come shoot a show. And I said yes. And that's how, like, little by little, he gave me that shot to kind of see that touring world, whether I wanted to go. This was very early on. And I got a little taste of what it was like to follow an artist, what it was like to photograph a tour. And obviously back then I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I just went with how the artist was going. If we went somewhere, if he asked for photos, I took the photos, you know. And I mean, I always remember being nervous to, you know, trying to capture what content am I going to capture, what photos should I take. You know, there's private time. Should I take photos of that?
That's the most difficult part I've learned.
And at the beginning, it was like, I was scared to just take my camera. I was like, oh, well, he's
like in a conversation with this person. Yeah.
And now it's completely different. Now, quiet time is the best time. Take your camera out, you know, stand in a corner. Don't be so visible, but, you know, still snap away. You're going to love having those photos at the end of the day.
Yeah. Who was the next artist after that?
Well, after that, that's when I started essentially doing the whole festival circuit world where, you know, I did BPM Festival, Electric Zoo, that turned into Mysteryland, Firefly Mystery Festival, Hangout, EDC New York. I mean, there's so many other more. I'm spacing out right now that I did. And then I started, because of ECHOSTAGE, I obviously was meeting a lot of artists, and there was a few that would come to me like, hey, like, if there was a festival nearby, they would ask, you know, I would always send emails out. I was like, hey, you're going to be at this festival. It's close to me. We'd love to shoot it. Some of the first ones was like Above and Beyond. I did DJ Snake really early on.
Actually, with that, don't they have their own in-house photographers already?
DJ Snake?
Yeah.
At that time, they didn't.
Oh.
They only had his videographer, Charlie, who's been with him for forever. But I did like EDC Orlando with them. I did work with Tritonal, but these were just one-offs, you know. But they were like just the festival one-offs.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it like really touring in that moment. Yeah. I would say the first touring experience I had was with EDX. We did a bus tour with him, and I got to see like what that life was like. the day-to-day grind of a tour. You know, a lot of people think it's super glamorous, just crazy parties going. It's like you don't, you know, it's like you show up to a place, you got to start working, you got to start shooting. You have, you know, rehearsals, you have sound check, you have meet and greets, VIPs, shooting all this stuff. You know, the friends are coming over. There's all that behind-the-scenes stuff. And then obviously you got the show, and then you got to go to the next city and do it all over again.
So how did you meet the Chainsmokers?
So I met them in DC through the same promoter that I was working at. They came to this tiny club that I used to work at. Famous club, you know, a lot of the biggest DJs in the world came through this club, and I didn't know them at the time. The promoter told me about this selfie song that was, I mean, I think it had just come out. It wasn't the selfie that people know now. It was just a song. Photographed the show. It was a hell of a show.
Oh, so you're really their first?
I'm not their first.
In-house? No?
No. They've had other guys before me. But that's just when I met them. I
Oh,
wasn't working
okay.
for them then. I was working for the club.
Yeah.
And then a year, or not a year, but like later that summer at Electric Zoo, 2014, I want to say. Yeah, 2014, I was assigned to the stage they were playing at. They were obviously one of the headliners of that stage. And this was during the year that Electric Zoo had a complete media blackout, no outside photographers. So it was the only photos being taken were by the photo team. That's it.
Yeah.
And I met one of their managers, and when they came up to me, I was like, hey, I introduced myself. Like I always say, introduce yourself.
Yeah.
And I told them who I was, what I did, and they were just like, can we please have some fire photos? And I was just like, done, no problem. And I mean, it was an insane set. It only lasted 30 minutes because it got cut off because of rain. But it was a fire 30 minutes. I went back to the trailer, edited the photo. I knew exactly what 3 photos I wanted to edit right away. I come out of the trailer and I see the guys are still there. Their whole team, Chainsmokers, management, PR, everybody's still there. Friends, they're all there. And I went straight to the guy I had talked to. His name is Ennis. And I showed him the photo and I said, hey, here are your photos. Right after the festival. And they ended up liking them. And after that, I just proceeded to just email him almost every other week about hiring me to shoot them.
Really?
I pestered him till he finally hired me.
Does that work? Sometimes I feel, I don't want to be too aggressive, but I guess sometimes people don't really think of it that. I feel like we think about it more when they're pestering someone than the actual person.
Yeah, and what I would say is there's going to be 2 outcomes. You're either going to get a no, or you're going to get a yes. But you can't get to the yes without actually doing it.
I love that.
So while it may seem like it's too much, you have to understand at the end of the day, you're trying to run a business. You're trying to get your career going. It's a chance you have to take, and if you don't take it, you're never going to find out whether it would have been a yes. So I'd rather know that it was a no, and also I'd rather know that I did it and I got it. They offered me like this small weekend tour, and I got a small taste of how the guys were, the way they are, especially in their shows. I remember that club show, and I just think about, let's say, Lollapalooza Chicago that we just did, and it's the same energy I remember from that first show.
Oh wow!
I
heard they're
energy.
Amazing on stage.
And you know, people always tell me, it's like, how is it? I'm like, you know, these guys, personality-wise, have not changed. They're the same guys that I met the first time. They're still the same guys now. And what's even crazier to me is the level energy they put in, whether it was a 250-person show, 6 years ago, or 5-6 years ago, or a massive major festival. It was still the same energy. I mean, you gotta love that.
Yeah. And what stories do you have?
Stories, let's see. One of my favorite stories is from last year Europe tour. We made a post about it. I always bug Alex that I want him to jump, because Drew is always the one doing the jumping. And I would always tell him, I was like, man, you can't have Drew all the glory. You gotta give me one jump. And I kept bugging him for about a week that I wanted this jump. It took me that long to convince him to do it. And to be honest, he had done other jumps while I wasn't around, so I was very jealous. I was like, how could you did a jump when I wasn't there? What's going on here? But he finally agreed to it. And here's the funny part. I had just gotten a tattoo on my finger. This tattoo on my finger. It was maybe 2 days before. So it was fresh. Obviously painful if anything touched it. And he looked at me, he pointed, it's happening right now. And I was like, I'm ready, let's go. I go up, pull up the monopod, I go up with the camera, and the monopod hits it. And the moment it hits it, I drop the monopod because it hurt. So I was just like, oh, and I missed the shot. And it happened, he jumped, and I missed the shot completely. And he like comes down, he's like, yes, I nailed it, big jump. And I'm just standing at the bottom of the stage, just like, good job, bud. You did it. But we have absolutely no record of it. Our videographer at the time, he recorded the whole thing.
Oh, phew.
He recorded my reaction where I was looking at the camera like, oop, nope, I didn't get it. I did not get that shot.
That's so funny.
And it became just like this funny thing because after that, obviously I kept asking it for it. I was like, hey, can we do it one more time? One more time. And it took me another 3 days to convince him to do it. But we did it. It happened. I got the shot. We had the glory. Everything was great. But we still have that video of me missing the shot. So it's okay. You miss the shot sometimes.
Yeah.
It happens.
How did you meet Steve Aoki?
Met him through ECHOSTAGE as well. A lot of the artists that I've worked with, I've met through, obviously, ECHOSTAGE. And then some of them have been like word of mouth, where it's like, you know, I've done work with A, B, C, D, E artists. So they've kind of, they put the puzzle pieces together and like sort of contacted me through that. And that's how it was. His tour manager, Dylan, hit me up, asked me if I wanted to join in some dates. And I was like, of course. And what most people don't know about that, and I told Steve the last time I saw him is that the first ever concert I photographed was a Steve Aoki concert.
Oh, that's so surreal to actually be like on it. Yeah, that's awesome.
I even showed him a photo of, because I actually took a photo with him at that concert.
Like a fan.
And I literally, like a fan. I just, because I was a fan, you know. It's like I love the music, I love all these artists, and that's what kind of piqued my interest. And I had this photo that I legit had to like go deep into my Facebook to find, like many years. And what's funny is, obviously no beard, a lot younger. And what's the funniest part about that photo is that Steve looked the same 10 years ago than he did now.
Never ages.
Yeah, and it's incredible. But yeah, it was like, it was so, I mean, it was a funny feeling being able to show him that. Obviously, he'd never realized that I had, you know, artists get, you know, they're doing a lot of stuff. They can't always remember everybody. But it was funny just to be able to show him that and be able to see it now, like, full circle, like, hey, I did this show, first show 10 years ago to where I'm at now. It's actually pretty surreal.
Do you have a story from when you tour with Nicky Romero from before?
Yeah, so I met Nicky in Taipei, officially met him in Taipei.
Oh, wow.
And he came up to me and told me that he enjoyed, that he really liked the work I was doing with Drew and Alex. And
oh, so he's a fan of you.
I don't want to say that.
I said it's okay.
Yeah, so, but he came up and was like, hey, I really like what you do. And I was like, man, I love what you do. You know, great to finally meet. And I think it might have been like a week after that, he messaged me again and asked me if I was available to do an Asia tour with him. If I could do like, you know, the same sort of looks. And I was like, of course, you know, definitely go into it. And that's when I found out how involved Nicky really is about the way his photos look and the process, or, you know, what it takes to edit, what it takes to select photos, you know, what kind of photos. And it was really cool to see how involved he is in that creative department. You know, a lot of artists leave, you know, or just give full creative freedom. They don't care, come in, take your photo, post this way, post that way, and that's really all about it. And it was actually really cool to see how involved he was. You know, he wanted to be part of the process. He wanted to learn what that process was. And being like sitting there, like after, let's say, a show, and him sitting there, like actually wanting to learn as much as, you know, wanting to be a part of, like, have a say on what was being edited.
So you're
was
teaching
actually
him also?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I want to say
cool.
I did teach him a little bit. But, you know, it was kind of also cool to see that he himself is a photographer. Most people don't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I mean, there was one time where we were talking about gear. He loves gear, and was telling the Sony A9 had just come out, and obviously he had one of the first ones,
obviously,
with you know, amazing lens and everything, and he brought it to a Vegas gig we were doing, and he was just like, "Hey, do you want to play with this?" I was like,
Hell
"Of course,
yeah.
of course." And obviously it was like a little. We're digging at each other, which one was better, whether the Canon 1DX or the Sony A9.
Yeah.
Because I shoot with everything Canon, so it was kind of funny to see that, to have that interaction with him, to be like, all right, which is better? Which one do you think works better? Should you switch to Sony? Should you keep Canon? And at the end, I stayed with Canon. Let's just leave it at that. Yeah.
And how would you describe, because you've also toured with Zedd and stuff, like how do you describe his personality for people who haven't met him in person?
I always love to say this about Anton Zedd, is that he's one of the funniest guys to tour with. Mm-hmm. I think, and actually it's not that I think, but I know, after seeing, like I did a Coachella run with him, both weekends of Coachella plus a California tour, and I got to hang out with him and all his friends from Germany, and it was really amazing to see an artist, one, keep his long-time friends close like that.
Oh, yeah.
But two, how his humor is because of, you know, those friends. Like, you're funny because of your friends, and being able to see him, like, you know, with his guard down, where he's making jokes about everything, and being able, you know, I don't want to say a prankster, but like, you know, doing little things like
cheeky.
Yeah, right. Little cheeky jokes, which is, you know, to me is amazing. It's, you know, I've been following Zedd for a long time, been a fan of his for a long time, and it was really great to see how down to earth he is and how close he keeps those friends of his, you know, and I feel like he treats his team just like that.
Oh, wow.
The same way he has his friends, I feel like he treats his entire team, from tour manager, video, lighting, photo, everything, the exact same way, which is amazing.
What equipment do you have now, or do you use?
I still use all Canon.
Yeah.
I started with Canon. It was one of those things where I started buying lenses, and once you start buying lenses, it's kind of hard to go away from
I'm
that.
Canon.
Yeah. And I use a 1DX Mark II, all L series lenses, you know, the trifecta of everything, 16, 35, 24, 70, 7200.
Do you travel with all this, or what's the...
My bag is heavy.
What?
My bag is super
Are you ever
heavy.
scared? Like, gosh, if it was stolen? Like, I don't even want to say that, but me, when I travel
We gotta
around
find some
Asia,
wood.
I'm
We gotta
like,
find some
yeah,
wood.
let's...
I've never been scared. There's been a few times where I will leave my camera bag in the green room where it's locked.
Yeah.
Just because I may not want to leave it on stage. But nowadays, stages are closed, so I feel pretty secure putting my camera in certain places. There's always somebody watching, I would say that. Whether it's a stage manager, production manager, somebody's watching.
Yeah.
So I'm not afraid of that. Mm-hmm. And I try not to think about it. I'm trying to concentrate on the show. Although now it's going to be in my head. No, like, oh no.
I know, that's why I'm always like so sober, holding all my cameras, like no one touch.
Yeah, but the way my setup is, I have a harness.
Yeah.
I have a lens pouch belt that I keep everything on me. So for the majority of the show, it's always on me.
Oh,
it's never just sitting somewhere. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But yeah, it's everything. But it's heavy bag. There's been a few times that like we get picked up from the airport or from a hotel going to the venue, and somebody will grab my bag, and their reaction is always like, "Whoa, this is very heavy." I'm like, "I know."
And actually, going back to what we were talking about earlier, how did you figure out negotiating and figuring out your rates?
Just with anything, it just takes time. You know, you will never have the right answer at the beginning. That takes time. You learn from your losses. You also learn from your gains. As I like to tell, whenever I get messages about, especially rates or finding work, I always start and I end my advice, or whatever I say, with the same thing, which is just have to be patient. Let the process take its course. Because there are no right answers. Yes, there are some good answers, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for you the same way it worked for me. So it's just a matter of how you approach the client, how you approach your work, how you approach finding work. Not everyone's going to be the same way. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, it may work the same way I did it, and more often than not, it won't work, but you're going to find your way. And it just takes patience.
Actually, with all the the touring, you negotiate like the whole tour at a time, right?
Yeah.
So actually, your job has a lot of stability in a way because you're doing it's like kind of like contract work compared to like people who just work daily and gives like one-off projects.
I mean, I still do some one-off projects here and there, but I have a set rate for certain things now, so I go with that. But yeah, it is good to have, you know, the longevity of a tour where I know for months, from September to December, what I'm getting paid and how much I'm getting paid. I don't have to worry about that. Same thing for like now, like the rate has already been agreed upon, so it's already set. I already know that that's that. But I mean, even I still get, you know, messages and emails, clients wanting to shoot on a daily basis, and you know, you got to work. There are budgets. There are my budgets. There are their budgets. Sometimes both are the same. Sometimes they're not. And it's just a matter of like how you negotiate that. Obviously, you want to get the best you can out of your work and out of your worth. But it's always good to at times work with the client, you know. I don't want to say that that's what you should do all the time, but I always I have a little saying where I always say, like, you know what, sometimes it's good to give them one, and in return you're always going to get more. Yeah. You know, sometimes it's just best to keep that build that relationship over not building it just because of money. You know? Yes, the money's great. Yes, having a specific rate is good, but there are times to me like building a relationship is much more important than losing that relationship.
And also, like, I think a lot of artists go through like mental problems from like or anxiety like touring for so much. Is that you see like when you tour with these artists?
Yeah.
And have you felt it yourself?
As far as the artists, you know, it's funny, like there are times because this is what they love to do that you don't see it. You know, I would say this, like, when we did a tour in 2017, the arena tour with the Chainsmokers, to me, I saw these guys every day. I saw them wake up at the same time, have breakfast at the same time, go to the gym at the same time. Everything was so routine, and that you don't realize how exhausting it may be for them. You know, this was Drew's first time where he was a lead singer. He was singing every day. I had no idea about voice exhaustion, you know, like that. I didn't know that was a thing. Yeah. And it wasn't until I saw the documentary that it hit me. I was like, I had no idea that he was depressed. I had no idea that he was going through these emotions because of how tired he was. You know, and it's like sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. And I mean, even for me, like I have there's this guy, Aubrey Wright, who used to be Martin Garrix's tour manager, who I would like to consider him a mentor because he has helped. His words have helped me understand certain things, like small words he would say to me, small little phrases that sort of guided where I took my touring, and I never really realized it. I never really given him credit in that sense where I'm like, you know, you said this to me in like 4 years ago, and I took that to heart and I did it because you told me I should do this. And I've never said that out loud until right now. I'm just realizing this now.
Oh, that's awesome.
And one of the things I remember he posted a while ago was, you know, the message wasn't to touring people. The message was to friends. He said, friends of touring crews, remember, we go through some insane highs during a tour because you're doing what you love. You're in the moment. Everything is so crazy. The shows are insane. And then when you come home, all that stops. Yeah. There's nothing. And he was like, you know, people go through post-tour, you know, I don't want to say depression because that's such a harsh word, but some do. And I did find myself after my first big tour where I was sitting at home just thinking to myself, what now? Like, where do I go from here? Like, what do I do today? You get so used to having such a routine that you find yourself trying to find answers that aren't there at that moment. And you kind of feel depressed because you're not working. And you just have to pick yourself up and remember that as from a photographer's perspective, as a freelancer, you have to think of the next day for your job. You have to think of the next day for your paycheck. So you got to get back on it. But you do go through it. Yeah.
What would you say have been the biggest challenges in your career so far?
Biggest challenge, I would say, it's such a changing world media-wise. As far as how people take that media in. obviously currently we're in the Instagram world.
Yeah.
Where everything's super instant. Everything, it's in the now. Like after a show's done, within an hour, I have show photos ready. Because it's fresh. It's like you don't want to wait 2-3 days because then the moment's gone.
Yeah.
The day is gone. So it's just, the biggest challenge, I guess, is adapting to those changes. You know, sometimes I used to joke that I was never a fan of Instagram. And I dreaded having to do work because of Instagram. But you have to adapt. You have to evolve.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. That's the medium now. And that medium at some point will change, and you're going to have to adapt to that change. So I would say that's probably the biggest challenge, trying to keep up with that changing world of how people are consuming what you're creating and what the artist is sharing. And it's the same thing for them. Just now it's the streaming world, you know.
Oh, yeah. Last question. What do you want to be remembered for?
Wow. I was not ready for that one. What I would like to be remembered for? Okay. I recently, like within the past year, I decided that I wanted to help others. And that, I wanted to, in my head, I wanted to create this group of guys. Like, I take it from this world. I'll start with this. In the NFL coaching world, they always say there's the coaching tree. There's one first coach, and then all these coaches that, as everybody became successful, more and more people became successful. And I wanted to start sharing what I know because I wanted to start that tree. I wanted to start seeing these kids become successful on their own by giving them advice, by helping, mentoring them. I have a friend of mine who was working with a DJ, and he came to me because he had an offer on the table, but he was afraid to leave that relationship with the DJ. And, sometimes the words that you want to hear aren't always the best words. The advice you want to hear isn't always the best advice. You never know whether you're ready for it or not. And when I gave him the advice, it kind of helped settle his nervousness, of what the job was going to be. And now he's touring Europe with one of the biggest bands in the world.
No way, that's awesome.
And I think about it, I'm like, that makes me really happy.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure at some point he's going to get to the point where I'm at, where he's going to share that knowledge that he learned from me and that he learned from himself and share it. And I always tell people, whatever advice I give you, take it. But when it comes time that somebody asks you for advice, share that advice.
Yeah.
Pass it forward. That's what I want to be remembered for at the end of the day.
I love this. Is so much fun. Thank you.
No, thank you.